Hey all, this is Jamie from Bad Swaps. I did upload a video a little while back, talking about the time I nearly killed myself doing some of the dumbest shit I ever did as a kid, messing around near a flooded river in wintertime. Uh, it was probably like February. The temperature was like mid to upper 30s, and me and my two friends went down to this park, Staten Park, which is a town just east of Salem. Little town, little podunk town. There's nothing there. It's just so boring. They didn't have no skate park. They didn't have no play areas. They didn't have uh, arcade. They didn't have skating ring. They didn't have shit for kids. It was the most boring town in all of Oregon, and that's probably even more boring than boring Oregon. So we spent a lot of time at the park, and it was a pretty decent park actually. That's about the only thing in the town that was for kids. Um, the back of the park had this nice trail system and a little pond back there. We'd catch frogs and toads and whatnot. Nice river system. This is the North Santiam River, which comes from Detroit Lake. And so, anyways, we're going back to the back of this park. We don't know. I don't remember why we decided to go up back here. I mean, there was no reason for us to be back there. I mean, it was nothing for us to do. We were on the water anyways. It was just cold, and the river was pretty swollen from all the rainfall. And yeah, we shouldn't have been back there. So anyway, we got to the back of the park, and right in that first turn on the right there is back about as far as you should be able to go back. Um, then that first left turn that's over the dam spillway thing. It's a dam, but I'm not sure like why it was even there. It's a little bit different nowadays, but it was just kind of a strange thing. It wasn't a hydroelectric dam or anything. But then you have to cross a no trespassing sign and a fence to get back there. We did it all the time. We didn't give a shit. And then you make that left hand turn there. And then you come to that spillway right there. That little spillway is I don't know 50 or 60 feet wide. And in the winter, it's insane how much water flows over this thing. I mean, it's 6 feet deep. The water's going 15, 20 miles an hour. It's just like, it's scary, actually. So we were just messing around over here in this little area just south of the spillway there. And we were walking along the bank next to the water, and there was this log there that I wanted to get past. And the trunk of it was up on the bank, and then the rest of it was in the water. It had fallen over recently. It was a dead tree, so it wasn't a branch or anything. It was just basically just a big log, and the bottom of the log was all the way into the creek bed or the riverbed. And I was walking along it, and I slipped, and I grabbed on to the log, but the water was pulling me under. It was pushing me into the log and trying to pull me under the log. And I see my friend. He noticed I was slipping, and he started running towards me, and I just couldn't hold on, and I slipped. My grip slipped, and the water pushed me along the log and all the way to the bottom of the riverbed. And it was probably 8, 9 feet deep. It all happened so quick. I realized I was not floating, and I was not like being pushed by the river. I was stuck on something. I took a quick look around. I realized the log was like right above me, and I looked down. I could see just rocks. I was like, okay, I'm stuck, and I'm not sure what I did. Either I pushed myself to the bank side of the river, or I pushed myself back. But whatever I did, I got unstuck, and I floated up to the top, and I just started swimming, and I swam to the wrong bank. So that's where that that no red line is. That's the river, and wherever that red line ended is on the left side is where I was, and when it picks back up is where I where I came up on the bank. And I stood up and I realized where I was. I was like, oh shit, I'm on the wrong side of the river. And there's this island here. We're pretty familiar with this island. We'd been messing around here for a couple of years, so we knew exactly where I was. But I was not about to get back in that water to cross. I was pretty scared, and I was soaked, and I was cold, and I just couldn't get back in that river again. It was freezing. And I was like, okay, well, me and my friends talked for a couple minutes, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to cross this river here, but I might be able to cross the other side, the other spillway across the island. Even though it's a lot wider, it shouldn't be that deep. And I was expecting like 2, 3 feet deep. We only ever seen it in the summer, so we just hoped it wasn't that bad in the winter. Like, okay, I told my friends I'm gonna try to cross the other side. You go home and tell my mom where I'm at. Like, okay. So I started walking across, and it took me about 15 minutes to get on the other side of the island. The entire time I was thinking, like, geez, man, like, if I can't cross this spillway right now, I'm gonna spend the night here. And if they don't tell my mom where I'm at, no one's gonna know where I'm at. So I'm like, all these things going through my head. I'm like, I'm gonna sleep here. I'm freezing. I got no way to start a fire. Uh, there's no shelter on this island. There's nothing. It's just trees. I think, oh, I gotta make it off this island. There's no way. And it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we only had about an hour and a half of sunlight left. And so I got to the other side of the island, and I look at the spillway, and it's like 270 feet across, and it's loud. I can't hear anything else besides the water hitting below the spillway. It's just deafening. And I'm looking, I'm like, okay, that doesn't look too deep. I don't know. So I take my first step into it, and I realize it's pretty slippery because all the algae on the concrete, makes it really slippery. I'm like, okay. I took one more step and I started sliding. I was like, oh no. I stopped and I backed up real slowly, and I got back on the shore, and I was like, crap, man. This is almost impossible. Like, I'm thinking, like, what am I going to do? Like, I remember there's beavers nearby, and there's always, like, really good, fresh sticks, like, from saplings and stuff. I'm like, okay. Found one, a beaver dam, and, like, lo and behold, there was this perfect sized stick, freshly cut sapling, all debarked and everything. I was like, okay, sweet. that'll work. So I picked it up. It's about 5 or 6 feet tall. This stick is, and it's about 2.5 inches around. All right, so I walk back to the spillway, and I step in, and I see if I can put the stick in any place where it's like gonna, give me somewhere to hold on to. And I'm thinking, like, well, it's not really working that well, so I sharpened it on the concrete next to me, to give it a little bit of a point, and I tried it again, and it started working a little better. I'm like, okay, I think this will work. So I start walking at 3 points of contact, basically just barely walking, just basically just sliding my feet across the concrete, and it started getting deeper. It was about 2 feet deep when I first got in, and I got to the place where it was about 3 feet deep, and I'm a like 5'4" at the time, and I weighed maybe 90 pounds. I was a really small kid. I'm like, okay, if it gets much deeper than this, it's gonna pick me up and throw me over the edge of the spillway. Oh, sorry, I had to take a break for a second. Someone walked in. So yeah, I'm walking across the spillway, and it's getting a little deeper, and every step I take, it just gets slightly deeper, and it's like 3 feet deep at this point. I'm like, well, if it gets past my belly button, I might become buoyant, and it might just push me over the edge. And I'm walking, taking my time, and I'm getting close to the halfway point, and it's like super deep all of a sudden. It's like 4.5 feet deep. I'm like, how How am I going to get across this? There's no freaking way. But I'm like, I don't know. I just got to go for it. And I'm not going to go back. I mean, I'm this far now. I just got to try it. So I tried a few different techniques to get across this steep spot, and a couple of them were really dumb. I tried to get like on the rocks on the the other side of the spillway, and it got really deep, and I was like, okay, that's not gonna work. And I was trying to find maybe a better spot to step over this spot, this deep spot. I'm like, nothing is working. So I'm like, okay, let me just let me just go for it. So I put my stick like in the middle of the deep spot, and I just go through it as fast as I can. Just one big step, and I get to this point where I'm like, the water's like, it's starting to push me, and I'm like, I got to keep going, just keep going, just keep going, and I just take little steps at a time, and then it starts getting a little shallower, and it's like basically right in the middle of the spillway. It kind of goes up, so I'm like sitting there between these two deep spots, and it's about 3 feet deep right here, 3.5 feet deep, and I'm like, okay. I made it past that part, and hopefully the other side of the river. I mean, you can see right there. That spot in the river is deeper, so there's more water going over the spill right there, and I can tell there's more water going over it. That means it's either going faster or it's deeper, or both. I'm like, well, I'm halfway. Might as well just keep going. I mean, I didn't have any other choice. So I took a couple minute break in the middle. I'm looking around. I'm like, I mean, if I wasn't about to die in any second, I mean, this is actually kind of cool looking here. I mean, like with all this, the sound of the water hitting the spillway and just the scenery around me, it was actually pretty, and also terrifying at the same time. So I'm like, okay, gather my thoughts, and I start walking again. And I'm using my stick, and I'm taking just very slight, slow steps, and the water's getting really deep again. I'm like, okay, just keep going. Just stay as perpendicular to the water as possible, so there's like not much the water can push on. I mean, my only saving grace is I had skinny ass legs, so the water was just pushing right past me, basically cutting right through me. So that was probably the only thing that kept me from getting pushed over the edge. And I kept walking, and it was getting really deep. It's like up to my, just past my belly button, and the stick is really helping. I'm just really relying on that, and if it slips, I'm screwed. So I just make sure I put it in a good place, and I keep moving forward, and keep moving forward, and keep moving forward. And on the far side of the spillway, there's a little fish ladder there, and there's a fish ladder and a fish ramp. Um, and I'm getting closer to the ramp, and a thought goes through my head that that'd be kind of fun to slide down, because in the summer we'd slide down all the time. I'm like, no, that'd be stupid. I'll just keep walking, climb over this fish ladder here. So I like when I'm going past the ramp or the slide, it actually scares the crap out of me because the water's moving extremely fast, and it kind of wigs me out for a second. I'm like starting to panic, and I just go for it. I just jump as fucking hard as I can, and I grab onto the side of the spillway or the fish ladder, and I pull myself up. And I'll walk across the top of the fish ladder. I'm like, okay, I made it across. Like, now what do? I'm on another island, and the only way off this island is through a gated bridge that goes out to the highway. Like, okay, if I get across that, I gotta walk all the way across town, because I live on the other side of town, and it's a good 2 or 3 mile walk, soaking wet and just freezing to death. I'm like, I really hope there's someone here. And this treatment facility didn't exist back then, but there was a little like a fish and wildlife station here. Um, there's a lot of salmon that come up this way uh, during spawning season, so I think they check, has how many they can find, in the fish ladder every once in a while. And so I'm like, well, it's middle of winter. There ain't no salmon run right now. So I'm like, well, chances of someone being here is probably pretty slim. But there was a truck there, and okay, I go over to the door and I knock on it, and no one answers. I'm like, okay. And I start to turn around, and the door opens, and this guy's standing there. He's like mid-30s. He's got this look of surprise on his face. He sees this kid standing there, soaking wet and just shivering. I'm like, "Hi, can I get a ride home?" And he's like, "How did you get over here?" And I just pointed at the spillway. I was like, "I walked across the spillway." He's like, "Oh, why? Are you for real?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was on the island. I was stuck. I had to cross the spillway. I was like, "That's the only way I can get off the island." He's like, "Okay, yeah, I'll take you home." And he starts the truck, and I jump inside, and he blasts the heat for me. I'm just sitting there, just waiting for the heat to come, and I'm just freezing. Just all this crap going through my head, like what ifs. Like that was that was extremely close. Like that could have easily got me killed. I could have slipped, fallen off the spillway, which is like 10 feet high. Uh, could have hit my head on a rock, been knocked out, drowned in the river. I mean, that would have been terrible for my family. And just this kind of this, just the whole thing, the whole situation, just what was I doing, messing around this river? Like I shouldn't be even close to it. It's dangerous. I'm young. I'm actually a pretty terrible swimmer as well. And the whole thing just kind of like scared me straight for a little while. I didn't mess around with water or anything for a while. I was like, nope. If if it's like looking like it's going too fast, or if it's flooded for any reason, I ain't messing with that crap. So the truck starts warming up, and he goes on, unlocks the gate, and we drive we drive off. I'm like, yeah, just take a left here and go the other side of town. I live on Water Street. He's like, okay. And we just pretty much sat in silence. I didn't know what to say to this guy besides thanks. And I was just freezing to death, and all I wanted was heat. And we get home, and he drops me off. And I think for a second, like, should I like introduce you to my mom? Like, hey, this guy just brought me home. I'm like, nah, it's fine. I walked in the door, and I'm soaked wet. And my mom's like, where the hell have you been? I'm like, just walking around. It was raining at the time, so I just kind of blamed it on the rain. Like that's why I'm soaking wet. And I was just freezing. All I wanted to do was get in the shower, and that was like the best shower I had in my life up to that point. Like wow, this heat is just amazing. I don't know how close I was to hypothermia, but I was probably pretty close. I ain't never been that cold up till that point. I've been colder since, but for different reasons. But yeah, that's the time I almost died doing shit I shouldn't have been doing. It's not the first time or the last time, but those are for different times, different stories. All right, thanks for tuning in, guys.